Welcome to the Everything is Final Fantasy podcast. I'm Drew Kreisman.
And I'm Ira Kreisman.
And on this episode, at least beginning on this episode, we, and by we, I very much mean I, attempt, once again, to do something preposterous, which is to rank the music of a Final Fantasy game. Not only that, but to rank the music of Final Fantasy VIII into a top 40. Why top 40? I don't know. That was a radio thing when I was growing up, long before I was growing up. Top 40 is what it is. Helps us to provide some structure. It helps us maybe to have for a little bit more of a conversation. And it's also just kind of a fun thing to do. But with this soundtrack, it is very, very difficult. So, Ira, I would like to begin with a couple of big statements, and then we'll see how much we agree with those as we move forward.
Sure. I think you know my position on ranking things. I think it is a very silly activity. I think it's silly to take too seriously. I think it can be fun and, like you said, provides some structure. So I'm going in blind. I don't know what you've done or what you've decided to do or what's going to happen next.
Right.
I'm just here to have fun and make comments.
Right. And ultimately, there's going to be a lot of things that people are going to feel like, that's ranked way too low. And I feel that way too. The whole concept is very silly. And on any given day, I might re-rank these in a lot of different ways. But without belaboring that point too much, there are a couple things I want to mention. First is I have oft, Ira. This
I also oft say oft.
Things, yeah, and oft. That I think the Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack has the best music on it. This sounds like such a convoluted way to say it. Why not just call it the best soundtrack? Way back when we talked about the music of Final Fantasy VI, we talked about how sometimes music is just there to be great music, sometimes it's just there to set a mood, and sometimes the music is integral to telling the story itself. It's almost a character or several characters in the story. And I still believe that Final Fantasy VI is the one that does the best job of telling the story. But if I were, again, back to this, how do you rank things? What is it? What are the parameters? What is the framing of this? If there were a group of musical philosophy theorists at a university of important people with big eyebrows and glasses and important hats or something, what music would I put in front of them blind just to judge and listen to and think about with all of their knowledge of music history? And it's a lot of the best stuff from this soundtrack. That said, I do think that Final Fantasies 6, 7, 9, and maybe 10 have deeper soundtracks. In other words, just more songs that I really like to listen to, or we've talked before about the parameter of skipping, right? They're as great as this OST is, and I do still hold it up as the best. There is a lot of music that starts to kind of sound a little bit samey to me, and I listened to some of our episodes in the past. I used the word filler. I don't like that word anymore. It's taken on a far more negative connotation over the last several years, and maybe even before that I even realized. So I don't want to refer to any of these tracks as filler, but I do feel like the first 10 or so that we're going to talk about here are much more in the category of setting a mood, making you feel like you're in a unique world of Final Fantasy VIII, but not necessarily being pieces of music you put in front of the professor and say, oh, this is going to blow your mind, right?
Sure. So it needs the scaffolding of the world, the game, the story, even to exist. Otherwise, it wouldn't be something a composer would compose as its own piece of art.
Right. And I think that's true in a lot of cases. That said, because this is Final Fantasy VIII, a game with time compression, and because we referred to it as the weird one, I referred to it as the weird one, and because the one rule that I really have for this top 40 is that it's not fair to give pieces of music that are heavily leitmotifed. In other words, the same melody is used many, many times throughout this game. And I didn't want those to dominate the list. And so what I did was I put each of those into one spot. So we're actually going to be talking about more than 40 pieces of music. So I should probably get a move on through this intro.
Okay.
But the other thing then is that because of that, I want to begin with a piece that probably actually begins at the very top rather than starting at number 40, with either number 1 or number 2, and we will rehab this conversation when we get back to it. But in order to fully understand, I think, what is happening in the Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack, must begin with the piece of music that opens the game. What I believe is one of the best, perhaps even arguably the best composition in the history of Nobuo Uematsu, Liberi Fatali. Okay, outside of obvious epic brilliance and, Latin choirs, and what a way to start, not only is Fitos like quite the opening, but it also introduces us to a character and a musical concept that we will hear over and over again. And I tend to think of these, and there are two of them we're going to talk about here, as the witches. And the reason I think of them as the witches is because that's how it was always written on the soundtracks. It's probably better thought of as the sorceresses.
Sure. Right, yeah.
And so this Vitos Lusek is a premonition. It's a prelude of witches, of sorceresses who are chanting. So the lyrics, Vitos Lusek, Vikos Vinosek, translate roughly to, or I'll just do, the entire piece here. And again, I'm saying roughly because I Googled it. These are translations. You hope they're close, but I've seen this kind of out there before. It's wake up from the sleep, my children. The crib is no more. Wake up from the sleep, fated children. Your slumber is gone. Arise, discover the garden of vernal truth. With the fiery truth, burn down the evils of the world. With the fiery truth, illuminate the darkness of the world. Farewell, children, until the fated day.
Okay. It's intense.
Yeah. And again, I think this song is almost from the perspective of the sorceresses, right? And we've talked about how there's a lot of different ones with a lot of perspectives, and maybe particularly Edea and Matron. When you hear the phrase, my children, of course, I think of, the person who runs an orphanage. And wake up from the sleep, fated children. Are those the seeds? And I'm sure there could be a lot of... We're not going to dive too deep into the, poetry of it here. We'll let everybody have their own interpretations, because that's part of the fun of poetry. But I do think that the melodic lines, and there's the one that will repeat over and over again, the Fitos Lusek, that will be leitmotifed. And also this melody that Uematsu will just drop in wherever he feels like it throughout Final Fantasy VIII. And again, I think of it almost as the sorceresses are watching over that part of the story, or that moment of the thing, and that la 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 la, and he'll just put that into any given piece, as you'll see when we go throughout here. The last thing I want to say about this piece, and I think I've mentioned before that it tends to open up concerts and things like that. But I have a very distinct memory of playing this for our father. In a dark room, he just turned down all the lights in the living room and played it as loud as possible. Because he would do stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And I just remember this being the thing that fully sold him on Uematsu as a composer, and made him a little more willing to go back and listen to some of the smaller pieces, because he knew he was capable of something this big and powerful and incredible. And I do think it's, unique amongst his epic pieces, which tend to go on a lot longer, like a Dancing Mad or a One Winged Angel, where this is just a complete thought in like 3.5 minutes. Just boom, there it is, beginning, middle, end. And it's a breathtaking piece. There's not too much more you can say about it, I suppose.
Well, and even though it only has a few minutes, it still has multiple moods or movements to it, which is pretty darn impressive.
Right, absolutely. And like I said, it introduces you to so many concepts you're going to hear throughout the soundtrack, including what is basically a far more stripped down version of the moodier or spookier dookier parts of this soundtrack, where I'm going to begin with the real number 40, and that is with a track called Truth.
I like that it's kind of slow, contemplative.
Yeah.
It's a direct contrast, I feel, to the obvious alternate modern sci-fi-ish feel of the story.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we're playing harpsichord.
Right.
The instrument of high society nobles personified.
Right. And something he'll use more in this soundtrack than he has in others. We pointed it out particularly for the people of Jador in Final Fantasy VI, so it's not his first time, but it's definitely something that he uses more throughout this, and then it grows to an epic scale in a piece we're going to talk about later. But yeah, I do like that it's, like you said, a very contemplative, slowed down. It's funny, when I was going through here, I was like, why don't I really remember this piece, even though when I hear it, I go, oh yeah, that feels and sounds like Final Fantasy VIII. Oh, it's just called Truth, a very basic name. But then as you talked about, it's for those scenes a lot of times where they're learning some kind of weird, funky truth, and it strikes that tone, and you're just like, wow, okay, I guess he's very good at this. Speaking of which, here's a weird one for you. How about at 39, Under Her Control? So it's funny, we're using a lot of the same instruments as the last song, but they're funkier now and a little more, just a little more. We're goofing around this. There's a lot of like sneaking around in this game, and doing so again with the like all-watching eye of the sorceress is about. And I just think of this more as a kind of classic, again, weird Final Fantasy VIII piece that I would never purposefully go and seek out, like, oh man, I gotta listen to Under Her Control from the FF8 OST. But when it comes on, it almost immediately gives you that warm, nostalgic, fuzzy feeling of like, oh man, what a trip Final Fantasy VIII was. Exact same thoughts and feelings, and I'm going to go through some of these early ones a little bit quicker because, as I mentioned, I feel like they mostly just strike a mood. But I feel very much the same way about The Spy, with specific reverence for its totally random funk guitar. Okay. This one to me feels a lot like he took the Under the Rotting Pizza music from Final Fantasy VII and just like cleaned it up a little bit and made it a little funkier. Not quite so rotting pizza. This is a shinier pizza, I guess, but it's an interesting little piece. And next we change up the tone a little bit for a track called Never Look Back.
This feels to me like another entry in the hurry up music we've talked about before.
Yeah.
We're running away from the giant mechanical spider thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think it plays a few other times, but I definitely most associate it with that scene.
Well, and as we talked about, we played that demo so many times.
Yeah.
That some of this stuff is ingrained, and so yeah, that's a nice piece of look out, don't stop,
Yeah.
look out, music.
Yeah. It doesn't really go too many places, but I do love that the bass line just goes real hard forever. The drums are pretty fun and interesting, and I've always been a sucker for a good use of that. It used to be called on all my keyboards as a kid the orc hit, or the orchestral, like where just everything in the orchestra hits the same note for just a moment. Bum, 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 bum. Like that's, yeah, all right, that's fun. At 35, I have a piece called The Mission, one of a few different Final Fantasy VIII. We are the military and we are getting ready to go on, or are going on, a, you guessed it, mission.
This one reminds me of Ahead on Our Way from Final Fantasy V, or the airship music from VI in the World of Balance. It's not quite like an Indiana Jones adventure, but it is anticipatory. We're going to go do a thing. We're kind of in a good spot to do a thing, to have a mission.
Right.
And I like that. I think that's really neat.
That's hilarious, man. The one note that I had on this piece, I do have a few things to say, but was, I feel like this feels like other Final Fantasy. You know, just in general, it feels like that kind of going on an adventure with a bit of that, as he'll do throughout. He throws a little bit of that Final Fantasy VIII stank on it, which I appreciate. I really like the bit about a minute and a half into it where it gets rhythmically very interesting and becomes more than just another hurry up piece or another getting ready for another good tension building piece. It gets into that spot where Uematsu will take something that was already pretty good and make it, oh man, we're doing a thing, like you said, right? Okay, remember when we talked about titles of pieces of music during the Final Fantasy Tactics episode?
Yeah.
This isn't quite that. And, you know, we've still got a few of those on here. I mentioned Truth didn't have a lot going on. And, you know, we're still only one numbered game away from it being fighting and still fighting. Or those who fight and those who fight further. But, Ira, you're a writer, librarian, English speaker and user.
Sure. Yes, all of those things.
What do you make of this phrase? Only a plank between one and perdition.
What? Hang on. Is that really the name of a piece? Only a plank between one and perdition?
That is correct. You think on that, and let's listen to the piece of music and decide which we have more thoughts on.
Okay, well, I like the piece of music.
Yeah.
A plank could be like a plank of wood.
Sure.
That's what I'm assuming. But it could be a plank of just about anything.
Right.
I think we tend to think of it in terms of wood, but you could have a plank of metal, and if it's sharpened metal, then that could be a sword. One, in this case, I imagine, is a person. One could be a stand-in for you, as one does.
The one.
But it could be a more ambiguous, as a person does. And perdition is punishment, right? It's not necessarily hell, I don't think, but it is
not necessarily purgatory. It's a different thing, right?
Right, but it is, I think, meant to be a punishment. So, and an after-death punishment, post-mortem sentencing, as it were.
So it's not just hurry up music; it's hurry the fuck up music.
Yeah. So there is not much time or space between a person, perhaps you, and eternal, not necessarily damnation, but definitely not good stuff if one is not careful. Perhaps it's a warning. There's only a plank between one and perdition.
Excellent. Fun piece of music, too. All right, here's one you love or you hate, and again, I never seek it out and put it on purpose. That said, I do very much associate it with my time with Final Fantasy VIII. You could put it kind of anywhere in this area. I put it here, which is where is here? Where are we? 33, and that is the piece of music that plays when you're playing cards, Shuffle or Boogie.
This is the anthem of every character who ever wanted to put off the end of the world and just play video games instead. This is
right.
The meteor hangs over Midgar, but we're gonna make sure we get every last piece of equipment first. Right? It's right. That sort of. Yeah, I know this is a serious game with a serious story and a serious situation, but also.
You want to play cards?
I know missiles just hit your base, but
right.
Yeah, and it's not a bad piece. It's not a bad little piece. You know what? A lot of these put me in mind of now is Final Fantasy VII Remake and the jukeboxes that you can find around.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they've got that similar vibe. I also think there's another interesting title here that it's Shuffle or Boogie. Not Shuffle and Boogie. Don't be. You got to pick one in this particular case. But yeah, it's a funky little tune. Like you said, I could see how if you play a lot of cards, you might get sick of this one. A similar thing, speaking of which, in Rebirth with the Queen's Blood music, it's fantastic. But when you hear it over and over and over and over and over again, my wife came to the room one day and she goes, "I woke up this morning with the Queen's Blood music stuck in my head." All right. Let's pare it all the way back down and listen to a very simple, but I think very effective piece of music that is the military thing that it needs to be and sound like for what it is, and that's Seed.
This is the serious get ready music. No, seriously, Zell, seriously? We're getting ready.
Quit playing with your hot dogs. Hang on.
All right, mister.
Hey. Got a very serious briefing we're having. And yeah, again, not necessarily a piece of music you would put in front of people without context, but in context, it's great. And when you hear it, it makes you think of Squall or somebody else, maybe Headmaster Sid, standing sternly and delivering very important news. So I suppose in an offshoot of hurry up music, we also have get ready to hurry up music. Getting ready music, right? So that Seed track is kind of a getting ready music, and we've got a few more of those here. And one I really like that, again, I'm not sure I could specify why other than I just very much enjoy its vibe, is here at 31 with the very literally titled Stage is Set.
This one reminds me of Final Fantasy Tactics.
What?
So
you stole my note again. Okay, that's amazing. That I was okay. Keep it. Sorry. Go.
well, just the title stage is set. Also could be the board is set. So if we're playing chess or a tactical game, but it's got that sort of military menu. Yeah, we're about to have the combat, but we got to get all our guys in place first. Sound that I associate with Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah. No, I even think this could be during the battle. It would have to be a little bit longer because, as we've mentioned, OST Tactics battles go on for 20 minutes. But I think this is, like you said, yeah, moving your pieces around the board, doing the fight. Yeah, I literally wrote that exact same thing down here. Is that I felt like this could be from Tactics, and beyond that, I think Uematsu was doing this stuff on purpose. In fact, I know he was, because we're going to talk about something like with a top 3 track where he's pulling. Remember, Final Fantasy VIII is pulling in lots of other times, lots of other technologies. It's difficult to place it like on the, does it have more technology than Final Fantasy VII because there are computers and spaceships, but less because there's no radio, right? It exists in this weird place, but with time compression and all the weird stuff that happens in the end, Uematsu uses his older music and other Final Fantasies to help drive home that sort of interdimensional time traveling wibbly warbly thing that we're doing.
Another observation I want to make, not to get too far off the topic, but a lot of the music in Unicorn Overlord also reminds me of Tactics.
Yeah, which I think is on purpose.
Interesting.
All right, at 30th on my list is a kind of strange and funky one that I probably placed a little bit higher just because, again, it always reminds me of the weirdness of Final Fantasy VIII, and it's called Starting Up. So it's more of that we're getting ready to do a thing music.
Steal your note again.
Okay, good. Do it. You probably are. You definitely are. You're going to steal my note again. Do it.
This one puts me in mind of the Magitech Research Facility from Final Fantasy VI.
Oh, good for you. Well, it was the hammer on anvil. I was going Mako.
Oh, you were going to... Okay, yeah.
You said Magitech, my brain heard Mako, but we're still talking about the same thing.
I think Devil's Lab it's called.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's that industrial tone, the sort of darker orchestral. It's got that weird thing at the beginning of it where it's just kind of like horror music for 30 seconds or something. And then it turns into this. It's got a weird, funky bass line that goes down. This actually plays when they're starting up the big antenna at the beginning, which is, I think, maybe another reason why I like it so much. I always remembered that big bass line drop just kind of coming out of nowhere, and again feeling like, what is going on in this game? And now at 29 for a total tonal shift, and in my view, kind of a step up. Now, you know how like a lot of RPGs will have that difficulty spike? I, in ranking these pieces of music, had a massive difficulty spike right around here. Starting with number 29, Ride On.
So earlier when I said Ahead on Our Way, this also, and perhaps even more clearly, is very much like Final Fantasy V's Ahead on Our Way. What a beautiful piece. I love this one.
It's amazing to me, and I will admit that the only reason it's as low as it is part of it is I had this weird bias against airship music growing up. I don't know what it is. And some of it, I think it would oftentimes feel, and this one very much did to me as a kid, like too much of a tonal shift. Like, this is happy flow. Why is the intro to an anime suddenly playing? Why is the Chrono Trigger music coming to this dark space game where, and I think this is the first time it plays isn't that long after, because when you get the airship, so it's like you were just almost dying in space in the frozen cold depths of emptiness alone. And then it's ba da da da. This is like,
because it's because flying is amazing.
Yes,
it's incredible, and when you finally have that freedom to go wherever you want in the world, it feels kind of great.
Yeah, and it's a bumpin' track. I have so much more appreciation for it now than I did back then. Even though it always kind of takes me off guard a little bit when I'm just sort of letting the Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack run, which I do from time to time. It just comes out of nowhere at you. Something that isn't on the Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack. And you're like, what? Then why are you talking about it? Because it's music that's in Final Fantasy VIII, and it's actually diegetically in Final Fantasy VIII. It's a part of the story of Final Fantasy VIII, and so I very much wanted to include it. Is here at 28th with the Irish Jig. This is really just a great fun piece that follows like all the traditional rules of folk music, and it doesn't do too many things that are on its own, but it's wonderfully pleasant. It reminds me of Selfie and the gang throwing their concert and getting up on stage and looking like silly gooses and having a wonderful time. Side note, Square Enix, you did this with Rebirth as well, where there's great tavern music. Spoilers, Ira. There's great tavern music in all of the different towns, and that's not on the soundtracks either. I don't know what that is, but I would buy, the tavern music of Final Fantasy that didn't end up like with this Irish Jig and the stuff in Rebirth. There's a few other things. Side rant over. At 27, we continue with the simple titles and Movin'. Once again, this is a massive vibes pick from me. It feels like he took Judgment Day from Final Fantasy VII and again more battle music from Final Fantasy Tactics and just kind of mashed them together, put that Final Fantasy VIII stank on it, threw a couple random twirls of some harps and flutes because it, again, Final Fantasy VIII, and I just love the vibe of this one. Okay, at 26, we get already into the tracks that I have criminally underrated. Beginning with, and I can't believe I have it this low, Lunatic Pandora.
Ooh. sure I've said already, this reminds me of the quirky moon music from Final Fantasy IV.
Yeah, it's got a lot of those same vibes, and again, I think on purpose he's evoking those kinds of things, and I also just think it's something he likes to do. When later in the game stuff gets weirder, he likes to make his music get weirder. Though, as we've said throughout this game, it's sort of more in this territory. But so there might be people out there going like, this is such a great mood piece, and it really is. It's got that extra oomph to it. With the strangeness about it. But for me, it is one that sometimes I feel like it doesn't go to too many places. It stays right where it is. And I do think it relies more on the context of the game. I'm just saying sometimes I skip it. I'm sorry, sometimes not like I listen. I don't skip it. That's wrong. I never skip it entirely. I would like permission to approach the bench and amend my statement.
Right.
Yeah. No, sometimes I listen to it once through, and that's enough because the big drums and gongs and bangs, and it's a little overwhelming, and it never really develops into much of a melody, and not everything needs to, but yeah, that's the only reason why I ranked it lower than other things.
Well, and like we said earlier, sometimes some of these pieces are reliant upon or evocative of the larger framework of the narrative and, for that matter, the medium of a Final Fantasy VIII video game. And if you're not in that framework, or you're not in that mind frame, maybe it's not the time to enjoy it.
Right. There's also the weird gamification of ranking things, where there's just another piece that has a similar vibe that I ranked a lot higher than I think other people would, and so I had this one a little lower. That makes no sense at all, but it's what I did.
Rankings are silly. Have fun with them.
So in at number 25, one you really could have put anywhere on this list, and well, I put it at number 25. It's some good old-fashioned town music from Nobuo Uematsu. In this case, it's called Breezy.
Yeah, this one's nice. I'm just going to keep drawing comparisons to other Final Fantasy. This one reminds me of VIII from 10.
Yeah, I meant to mention earlier, and maybe on a clever edit, though now it'll be weird and nonsensical, that there were a couple of the moodier pieces from before that I played that I felt a Final Fantasy X connection to as well. And part of you goes, well, that can't really make any sense. He couldn't possibly be drawing on music he has not yet created. Time compression doesn't work that way, does it? But one, yeah, it does. I think it does. I think it does. And two, yeah, I think one of the reasons why this is such a great soundtrack is because Uematsu was both looking back and drawing on everything he had done up to then, and looking forward at where he would want to go in the future. And because the world of Final Fantasy VIII is so unusual, there was really nothing he couldn't do, right? So, yeah, just very, very pleasant. Speaking of very, very pleasant, and again one that I think people would probably rank higher, and rightfully so given the context, because it plays such an important role in the story. And I initially had it higher, but I listened to it several times. I was like, if you're gonna say this stuff about these other ones not going in too many places or not being as intricate as your top 20 here, then Roses and Wine, beautiful as it is, has got to drop back to 24.
Yeah, this is another really nice one. I listen to, when I'm at work, a lot of chill lo-fi beats. I have it on. Listen to might be a bit strong, actually. I have it on sometimes while I'm working just to have some nice music in the background. And this sort of thing, in fact, I'm fairly certain, because some of them are Final Fantasy themed, I'm certain this one has played while I've been working before. It's just a nice piece.
Yeah. It is sort of the secondary love theme of the game. Spoilers for later, but you all know that's going to be high on the list. It plays, though, in a lot of moments that are, I feel like, even quieter, or like sometimes in moments out in space and things like that. It's just got... There's a melancholy to it. There's a lot of important space between notes. It's not without its intricacies, and it's absolutely beautiful. But yeah, I do think it can sort of, as you mentioned, maybe fade into the background in a way, but in a good way, in a very pleasant way. And for personal bias preferences, because we've got a third, this is just very pleasant music to listen to that gives us warm, fuzzy memories. But a long time ago, we talked about music box music and Chrono Trigger. I think it was maybe the first time it came up on our show. Maybe Final Fantasy IV has some music box music.
There's specifically the Home Sweet Home from V.
Also a big music box piece for us. And I am a sucker for it when done well, and it is done very well here in Fragments of Memories.
Yeah, this one also is very nice. Oh, very slow and sweet, and, well, you said melancholy for the last one, and maybe wistful for this one.
Yeah, I tend to think of this as the Alone, or perhaps Alone in Laguna, because, again, spoilers for later, Laguna kind of has his own music you tend to associate with him. But whereas Roses and Wine is a romantic love and a romantic piece and has done so very well, this is much more of a tender parent-to-child type of love. And Uematsu is the kind of composer who can put on, say, a solo guitar or a solo harp, a very simple piece that evokes one type of thing, and then here, and this isn't actually a music box, it sounds more like a xylophone or something. But it has that feel, and it's very much one of those kinds of pieces, and evoke that slight difference, that subtle difference, right, guys? Just incredible. And now, as the Pythons would say, for something completely different. At 22, I have Silence and Motion.
So I think we're back to the quirky alien music
that
I was talking about with Lunatic Pandora and Final Fantasy IV. But also there's that bit near the middle, and I think this is when we're in some of those caves that are almost crystalline.
It plays in some of those spots, and it plays in Esthar too, which is...
Okay. But there's almost the crystal arpeggio piece right there in the middle. Mm-hmm. Not up and down, just up. But that's really interesting.
I forgot to mention that he threw that in the background of the airship music as well, a little arpeggio for you. But yeah, nice. Whenever you get that a little bit on the harp, and yeah, I agree. There's something about the sweeping strings in this that just set it a little bit above things that are, maybe just the alien vibe without that melodic sense. It carries on for a bit longer. goes to some interesting places, leaves a few big gaps of space just for fun. And it's also, and I try not to do this too much, but its official piano reinterpretation is just exquisitely beautiful. And so it's one of my favorite pieces of solo piano music, so I maybe bumped it a bit for that as well. On the other end of the mood spectrum, but also somehow in the exact same mood, and that is why Nobuo Uematsu is a genius. At 21, I have a personal favorite, Dance with the Balam Fish.
I often think of this one as a waltz, but it's not. It's not in 3. I guess it's just a ballroom piece, and it's the ballroom piece. This is the one that they meet to, I guess. The meet cute is during this, right?
Right. Well, it's what's playing leading up to that, because, again, the more famous and popular piece that has its waltz version comes in at that point. But this is, it's there. But it's also the piece of music that plays when they're out in space, which just wandering around, like I mentioned, there's a couple of different things that play when they're out in space because a lot of things happen, but it's just the wandering around the spaceship music as people are just kind of floating. And I love the way that he upsets expectations like that sometimes. You know, we talked about it with Gao's theme isn't the Welt, and he's had so much spacey music and has so many spacey themes throughout this that he had this like weird kind of waltzy vibe for so much of the funkiness that's going on while you're out there. It's also got this like either concertina or accordion, most famously played by Weird Al. Again, weird.
Also Steve Martin.
Sure, why not? And it strikes a vibe of like walking down the streets of Venice, but that's not when it plays. Not that there is a Venice in this world. You know, I just love it. I think it's a brilliant combination of the two things we were talking about before, where it's a really great piece of music. It's pleasant to listen to. It's got a vibe. It does all of the things. But then the use of it in the story is also fascinating and unusual. Okay, here's one I have ranked too low, and if you gotta skewer me. It's higher than I used to have it. This is one I used to not like at all, but I have grown a much deeper appreciation for it. And right here at number 20, I have the main theme for our main character, Squall Leonhardt, very excellently titled, The Oath.
This is the hero theme of an introvert.
Yeah.
It's slower. It's quieter is not quite right, but it's not got as many other things going on. Zidane would not hero to this music, I don't think. Maybe Tara would.
Maybe, but I still feel like hers is even more purposefully upbeat and marchy than that.
Right.
She's got a lot of drums in hers. There's no drums in there. There's no percussion in this.
Yeah, this is an introspective hero theme.
Yeah. I think partly because of that is the reason why it didn't vibe with me as much when I was younger. There's not a lot of counter melody here. There's not a lot of intricacies. Our background harps and electronic music that I so love from this composer are all gone. And we just have these strings layering on top of each other, very slowly building their melody and taking a long time to get to the climactic moment, which is perfect for this character, right? It's an absolutely perfect piece for him. And as I listen to it more and more, particularly the Distant Worlds version of the live version of the full orchestra playing it, you can give it more dynamics. It needs that big swell, because when you hear it on the really deep strings, it evokes to me this perfect combination of like those old westerns and samurai and George Lucas and Star Wars, but that slow contemplative, the big strings. And in some ways, Squall is a lost cowboy Jedi staring off into the distance, and a samurai knight for his sorceress queen, right? And it just, in so many ways, as much as still it's not my favorite melody that Uematsu has ever composed, I don't think he could have put together a more perfect blend of sounds to represent this person. That's it for this episode. Thanks to everyone who's reached out to us and let us know what we missed, got wrong, or should have mentioned down in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube and join us next time when we do our best to make sense of the lore that we missed and do our also best to wrap up our thoughts on Final Fantasy VIII.